What does it take to be an effective leader? What does it take to raise kids who are not entitled and maximize your own productivity all at the same time? In today's episode, I sit down with Yuri Elkaim, a New York Times bestselling author, former professional athlete, and founder and CEO of Healthpreneur. He talks about the mindset shifts and strategies that have allowed him to pivot in his career, lead with both empathy and accountability, and balance personal and professional success. Plus, he's going to share 3 amazing, super powerful productivity hacks that are going to save you time, energy, stress, and maybe even money. If you want to learn how to step up as a leader, build a strong family foundation, and get more done in less time, this episode's for you. Before we dive in, if you're listening on the Apple Podcast app or on Spotify, make sure you hit that follow button. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit like and subscribe down below. All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Best You podcast. Today, I am very excited to be joined by the one and only Yuri Elkaim. Today, we're gonna have a really interesting conversation going a lot of different places. But the way I want to start is a little bit with your story, Yuri. You basically started off kind of like an athlete growing up, and you became a professional soccer player. Part of your story was also at age 17, you lost all your hair to an autoimmune condition. Actually, when I was 12 or 13 years old, I had alopecia areata and started losing my hair and having some bald spots, and then got some treatments and was able to grow it back. But anyways, I thought that was interesting. But then basically after like retiring from your soccer career, you transitioned into a career in health and fitness. I'm always interested in what gets people to pivot and transition and make big moves in their life. So I'm interested in, when did you know and how did you know that the soccer career was over and that you needed to transition careers into something different and into specifically health and fitness?
Yeah, I think I was 20, almost 25 when I quote unquote retired. So it wasn't like I was like 40 and unable to move. For me, it was the recognition that I had no control over my future. And the thing, like, as a professional athlete, I wasn't like living the lavish lifestyle that a lot of pro athletes was. I was still kind of like earning my stripes up the ranks. So the challenge that I faced was, I love soccer. Like, my whole life was like, I want to play pro. And then I got there and I was playing in France, and I started to realize there was a lot of stuff off the playing field that I had no control over, right? My agent was talking with different club owners and presidents about transfers and stuff. I had no say in any of that. So I was supposed to get transferred to another club at the end of my season over there, and the whole thing fell through. And I'm like, I really didn't like the feeling of not being able to do anything. Like, I was like, what can I do here? And there's like nothing. And so I made the decision to say, like, when I had a lot of time on my hands as well. So I had a lot of time to think and kind of like look into the future. And there was other stuff that I thought I was meant to do on this planet, maybe other than playing soccer. And it took me a long time to be okay with that. But for me, like, as an entrepreneur, my number one value is freedom and growth. And I just didn't feel like I was able to live that as a pro athlete, which essentially you're an employee as a pro athlete. Like, you do what you're told when you're told to do it. You have to show up at this time. You can't just like take off and do whatever you want. And that was really the decision for me at the time, to say, like, this is not what I want to do. So I'd rather kind of go back to zero and start building something from scratch if I have to, at least that I have some type of control over, looking forward. So yeah.
Yeah. And did you have clarity onto what you were going to move on into next? Did you know that it was going to be something in the health and fitness space? Did you know it was going to be specifically whatever you first did, or did you have clarity? Because I think oftentimes it can be easier to make a transition if you know exactly what that transition is to, but if you don't exactly know what that's to, it's difficult. So what was your level of clarity on that?
It was pretty foggy. I actually studied the Ontario Security Commission's course. So basically, to become a stockbroker. During my time in France and playing soccer, and then on my downtime, I'm studying how to trade stocks and investing and stuff like this, as if I were going to become, like, I wasn't going to become a trader, but I thought this would be a great skill to learn. And that was that. And so I did nothing with that when I came back to Canada. But what I had started doing previously, so when I was in university, before I went over to play soccer, I studied kinesiology and health sciences, and I started working as a trainer during that period of time. And so when I came back to Toronto, I don't even know, to be honest, like what the time frame delay was. Like, I don't even know if I like had contacted someone I previously knew, but I just started picking up some clients again as a trainer, almost as a interim. Like, I really remember enjoying doing this. I really enjoyed, physical fitness and strength and conditioning. I'm like, let me just do this for the moment, and then maybe I'll figure things out. So I did that for like 7 years ish. And during that time, once again, I'm like, I'm just burnt out. I'm underpaid. I'm overworked. I'm trading time for money. And that several year process started giving me a lot more clarity about what I actually wanted to do. And that kind of unfolded step by step. And eventually that led into, starting my first online business. But again, I had no clue what any of that looked like. But that's kind of how that started to unfold.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. I think one of the things I just wrote down is that pain provides clarity. I think oftentimes when we are in a season that we're uncomfortable in or we're not happy with, and hopefully we spend a little bit of time thinking about what could potentially be different that can give us some clarity. So knowing what we don't want to do and being in that can give us clarity on what we do want to do, which I think is a huge lesson. I'm just curious personally, when you were 17 years old and you lost all your hair due to an autoimmune condition, what was that like? Do you feel like did that shape you in a big way, or was it just kind of like you handled it pretty well and it wasn't that big a deal? Or what do you feel like that did for you, and how did you handle it?
Yeah, I think the key word is for me. Like, it really happened for me, not to me. And I think at the time, like, I had, my dad's Moroccan. I had bushy eyebrows, long brown hair, the whole bit. So like going from that 6 weeks later to like nothing is a bit of a transition. But to be honest, I was okay with it. Like, I thought other people handled it worse than I did. They must be like, oh my God, that must be so hard. I'm like, I don't know. I mean, it was okay. It's only hair. I was like physically fit. I was fine other than that. So I didn't think it was that big of a deal, although that, like, visually I wanted to figure out why it happened so I could maybe regrow it. So I don't think it was that big of a deal for me. Like, had it been something significantly worse, I think it would have been different. But what it did was it really got me into the direction of health, because I was very fit for a long time, but I wasn't health conscious. So when that happened, I started going down the rabbit hole of investigating why it happens, looking at all sorts of different possible routes and working with different practitioners. And that started to really get my wheels spinning of, I really like this stuff. I really am intrigued by how the body works. And that led me into studies that I, later went into through university. So I think it was the best thing that possibly could have happened for me, because it got me into doing what I'm doing now. At the time, I think others probably projected it being harder than it was for me personally. But yeah, maybe I just had a good head on my shoulders from a young age. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure there's a little bit of that for sure. But again, I think it's really important that for people to take away from that, when something happens, curiosity is a great way to channel whatever energy is coming from it. Whether it's something that's good or something that's bad, like, channel the energy that's coming from that towards curiosity, and that will lead to something, and that, led you to further knowledge in health and fitness and a greater career in health and fitness and whatnot. When you were a coach, I think one of the things that you talk about with your business, Healthpreneur, that I really love is, as a coach, it's really important to strike the right balance with your clients of empathy and accountability, of understanding where they're coming from. And I don't know if cutting them some slack is the right word, but you know what I mean when I'm getting at, but also them, like, holding them to a high standard and holding them accountable. How do you kind of think about, how did you, when you were doing more coaching and now when you're maybe coaching business people, how do you think about striking that right balance with people of empathy and accountability? Because I know every situation is different and every person can be a little different.
Yeah, it's a good question. When I started coaching, I let a lot of things slide. So someone wouldn't show up for a training session, no big deal. I had very loose boundaries. and I wasn't fully mature in my own body in terms of like as a coach at the time. 20 years later, I don't put up with anything. So now it's like my team makes up the compassion difference that I don't provide as much of. I'm still very compassionate, like I'm very empathetic for someone's situation, and I don't give a shit, right? Because if someone's going to pay me good money to achieve a result, they're not going to get the results that I could help them achieve the way they want to do it. And this is one of the things I've had to really strike a good balance with my team around, especially on the coaching side, is I understand our clients are busy, they're health practitioners, they're learning new skills and installing new systems, but I do not care that they think it's going to take them a certain amount of time. We're going to chop it in half because that's why they're here. Because if they knew how to get where they want to go, they'd already be there and they wouldn't need our help. They're not going to come to us and say, you know what, I think it's going to take me this long. I'm like, no, I appreciate that. We're going to cut that deadline in half. That would be like going to my trainer and saying, yeah, I don't think I'm going to do 8 reps on this set. I'm going to do 4. And that's just the way it's going to be. Yeah. It's like, no, like I work out with a trainer because he pushes me 50% more than I would on my own. Do I like it? No. Are there times that I would rather not go work out with them? Yes. Am I grateful every single time I'm finished the workout? You better believe it. So I don't really care what people want in terms of how they want to get where they want to go. Because if they're paying us money, if they're paying me money, if they have voted with their dollars to say, I'm willing to follow your process. So I'm like, good, you're going to follow my process. I don't care if it's uncomfortable. I don't care if you hit your head against the wall. We're just going to keep going. So for me, I would say percentage-wise, it's 80% accountability, 20% empathy. But the reason I hold them to a higher standard is because I care so much about them. Yeah. But at the same time, I'm not going to care more about their vision or their business than they do, because I'm not going to be like, you're going to work out today, you're going to do the thing, you're going to grow your business. I'm like, you got to want it more than I do. But when we're on the same wavelength, it's awesome.
Yeah, no, that's great. I kind of, the way that I verbalize it is you have to strike the balance of caring for the current version of themselves and the future version of themselves. The future version of themselves being like the 80% accountability. Like, I don't care if you're very happy with the way that I'm coaching you now. I care about the future you, and that person is where they want to be and have the results that they want to have. How do you, or do you find it as it should be different depending on the person that you're dealing with, from the standpoint of what your relationship with is with them? Meaning, like, if they're a client paying you good money, and so like they're paying you to get results, versus like your children, and you're leading your children to, like, different people in your life. How do you feel like you strike a different balance with empathy and accountability depending on the relationship that you have with the person?
Yeah, I think it's, whether they've opted in or not for the accountability. So the challenge that I have is I take a similar approach with my kids. My kids will probably say that I'm a bit of a hard ass, but they have a very, very cushy, blessed life, right? Like last night, I asked my son if he could, instead of just leaving the glass on the counter, if he could just wash it. And he's like, I'm like, are you serious, dude? You do nothing. Can you just wash the cup? And I have no tolerance for that, because and again, like, this is just my way of showing up in this world. My wife is much more lenient with my kids. I'm the opposite. That's generally how, the relationships go. Yeah. So I would say that I approach my quote unquote coaching my kids, not too dissimilar from how I coach my clients. The difference is I would have fired my kids a long time ago. Right? It's like, I am never working with you again. So it's a good challenge for me, because I have to realize they're not clients. They didn't sign up for this, like, I want dad to like hold me to a higher standard. But I also understand that there's an element of, I've got 4 boys, just for context. I think if it was girls, I'd be like a softie for sure. But with my boys, I think at least the way I see this, as a father, I want to prepare them to become useful, well-adjusted citizens of this planet, who take full ownership of their life, who show up in a way that is respectful, and also, they understand how to just live. Like, they can socialize, they can look people in the eye, they can give a firm handshake. And I think that's a lot. It's sadly lost with a lot of families nowadays. And so like we don't ever have a device at the table. And we go to dinner and almost every other family has kids on their devices. And I'm like, what's happening here?
Yeah.
And if I'm a hard ass for not allowing that, I'll take that all day long, because
Yeah.
I know that's, I hope, like, being able to have a conversation with your family is important. That's a standard that I'm willing to uphold because I believe that that's important. So there are certain things like that that I hold standards to within our family. And, like, if that means you're not playing 10 hours of video games a day, sorry, like, that's the family you're born into. Like, we'll give you an hour or two, but, well, my friend's playing, like, my friend's playing Minecraft all day long. I'm like, I don't care. Why would you compare yourself to other people that are just, yeah. So
Are you somebody who feels like they're really consistent with their workouts, but they're still not quite getting the results with the number on the scale? Well, I hate to tell you, but it's probably nutrition. I know so many people who are pretty darn consistent with their workouts, but they fall in and out of consistency with eating the right things in the right amounts. And oftentimes, not necessarily a lack of discipline, it's a lack of education. And if you knew better, then you would do better. And that's why I'm running the Fat Loss Forever workshop. I'm gonna have a 1-hour Zoom workshop with you and a bunch of other people to discuss exactly how to determine how much you should be eating for your body weight and for your goals and your body type. I'm gonna break down how much you should be eating, what types of food you should be eating. I'm gonna educate you like you've never been educated before, and then you're gonna leave feeling empowered, motivated, and super clear on how you can actually start getting the results that you want to see with your body composition and with the number on the scale. So instead of being frustrated with the inconsistency with your nutrition and the results that are lacking, let's get clear on how to make that happen. So sign up for the Fat Loss Forever workshop on March 24th at 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. Central Time. I'm really excited to see you guys there. For sure. I want to expand a little bit, just a little further on this conversation. You mentioned a practical thing of how you don't let them have devices at the table, and you have set that standard, if you will. And your words, not mine. You said, a lot parts of their life are cushy and comfortable. And, I've seen your place in Mexico on Instagram. This place is freaking sweet. And what are some other things that you do as a parent to ensure that they don't take for granted, they don't grow up spoiled, and they have the hard ass mentality that their dad has?
yeah, I want them to be like, so my kids, they have a very strong feminine energy, which is amazing. They're very, very sweet souls, and I love that. And it's not that I'm trying to harden them, but it's also, I don't want to, I can't stand entitlements. And unfortunately, when I've worked with thousands of adults who are many times babies in adult clothing. They don't take ownership for anything. They point fingers at everyone else. And I'm like, you're a shocking human, to be honest. And I wish you all the best. I want nothing like that for my kids to develop into. So for instance, I started having kids when I was not in a good financial place. So when I was 30, 31, that's when we had our first child. And then over the next couple of years, I was able to make some big headway in my business. And so they've traveled business class everywhere, right? Up until now. Now our oldest three are old enough to fly in the back of the plane. So no matter where we go, I don't care if we're going to Italy in a couple months, they're in the back of the plane. And I know that's like, okay, well, that's not that big of a deal. Like, but for us, it is. Like, we're not living in a third world country. So if I can put them in situations that are less than ideal, so be it. When I was young, I flew 4 times to Australia in economy. I'm like, I survived. Like, you guys haven't even experienced that. So have fun. I don't care if it's a red eye. I don't care if it's whatever it is. You're sitting in the back. The other thing is, with where we are in Mexico, I mean, we have a chef, we have housekeepers, everything's taken care of. And so I'm like, I don't care if they can take the dishes off the table. You can also do that. Like, if we're back home, like, you'd still be doing that. I want them to understand. I want them to be very grateful for the help that we have or the situations that we've been able to create, but also help them understand that, like, in no way, shape, or form will you ever just sit around and expect someone to do something for you. So I don't buy anything for them. I don't like clothing. I don't buy them anything. The only thing I've purchased for them maybe is a couple online courses because they wanted to get better at video editing and stuff like that. But other than that, if they're like, I want to buy some toy, I'm like, cool, like, you've got your own money, go buy yourself. All the money they make or all the money that's given to them, 50% off the top is taken and put into investments that they'll never see for the next 20 years. And I'm like, listen, you guys live at home, you have no expenses. Like, what do you need like even half the money? Like, what are you going to do with that? Um, and I think also, like being respectful of themselves, other people, and their environments. And I think, sadly, when you see people, for me, when I see people litter on the street, and I know this sounds like a bold blanket statement. Like, I know everything I need to know about that person. If someone's willing to throw a can of whatever on the street and walk away from that, I'm good. Like, I'm not going to hang out with you. I have a pretty good understanding of your view of the world. And it's a pretty shitty one, to be honest. Because why would you litter if you knew you had a bigger future ahead of you? Generally, people who believe they have a bigger future take care of what they have around them. And so I want my kids to always be respectful of themselves, other people, and their environments, knowing full well that their future can always be bigger than their past. And how they treat themselves and other people and their environments is a good reflection of how they see their future. So I'm always trying to show them these lessons, not by lecture, but through modeling. I work out a lot. When I say I work out, I'm like not like a gym rat, but like I exercise all the time. Like I'm playing tennis, we're walking, we're going for runs, we're working out. I get my kids involved in that. Now they actually do so because they want to put on a little bit of muscle. So I want to demonstrate what I think living a good quality of life is. And I want them to see like none of this stuff happens. It's not just given to you, right? Like it requires work. And I've told them, I'm like, if you guys get good at video editing, I'm not going to pay you anything. You'll learn the skill. But if you get good enough, I have hundreds of clients who may want your services. Doesn't matter how old you are. If you can do the work, that's great. But you will get paid very little for that amount of work for the short term, right? Like until you're a little bit older, because you have no expenses, right? I want them to feel the value of contribution. If they want a car, buy it yourself, because as soon as that car gets dirty, you will wash it. If I give you a car, you don't give a shit, right? There's no value of ownership because you don't understand what it takes to earn a dollar. So therefore, nothing matters if something happens. And so I just think there's just so much entitlement in this world that I'm kind of doing the opposite with our kids in a way that I think, will hopefully develop them into well-adjusted humans.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I love it. I love it. That was all great stuff. I'm taking notes. I don't have kids yet. Hopefully, some point in the not too far off future. So I'm like, all right, I gotta do that. No, that was great. That was great. I'm curious as to, like you said, you were kind of a trainer and coaching people, more specifically you kind of one-on-one or maybe groups for about 7 years or so. And then you wanted to make it bigger and kind of transition into, like, I don't know if it was exactly the timeline, but into bigger things, into kind of coaching business people, et cetera. At what point, what was the catalyst to being like, I need to make this transition? I know you said like I was kind of burnt out, I was overworked, underpaid, that sort of thing. But did you have a vision again, like for this transition?
So when I went from in person, I'm like, I'm burnt out. I never want to speak with humans ever again. So I'm like, I'm going to live the laptop lifestyle. I'm going to write ebooks and I'm going to chill. Yeah. Rude awakening, that didn't happen. So it took me a long time to see success in my online business. So when I started online in 2005, that first business was still health and fitness to the average consumer, weight loss, energy, the whole bit. Did that for 13 years. And then I got really tired of saying the same thing over and over again around fitness, nutrition, health. And I loved it. I mean, I still love it. It's still a big passion of mine. I was just tired of building a business around it. And then during that time, a lot of other practitioners were asking me for business advice. And then I started to think to myself, maybe this is like an unserved area, because a lot of amazing health practitioners, they spend 10 years in school, $300,000 on school, but they have no business acumen. Yeah. And so I'm like, well, I've had to learn this business stuff. What if I could help them bridge the gap? And my mission has been to help 1 billion people on the planet, help people become the best versions of themselves, and fundamentally like disrupt the broken sick care system. I can't do that by myself. But if I could help other healers build better businesses that can reach and influence more people, then maybe we can get there together. So that's where Healthpreneur was born, that kind of that thinking about 8 years ago. And that was really, And like all of these, and I think this happens for a lot of us, like all of the pivotal moments in my life were, like losing my hair. Like it was amazing because it got me into this world. And then transitioning from offline to online was because I was just burnt out and sick of people. And then I realized, well, selling ebooks all day is not going to happen. And then I wasn't really happy in that business after doing that for 13 years. And then I realized I really enjoy working with people, but maybe in a different capacity. And then people started asking me for business advice. I'm like, okay, well, maybe this is the next thing. So it's always like this, it's just like an ever evolving new chapter. And I don't know what the next chapter is going to be necessarily, but it's always for the foreseeable future. This is what I'm really excited about. This is what I think is meaningful. And this is where I can, kind of work within my zone of genius. And with Healthpreneur, what I've realized is I really, really enjoy working with people in a way that serves me. Like I know, like I don't enjoy working one-on-one, 10 hours a day. So I've built the business around my zone of genius. I really love building amazing teams. So we have a great team, and that's a big area of focus of ours and mine personally. And I just love I like doing big things. So I don't know what the next 50 years is going to look like, but I know that our goal of Healthpreneur is to build a business that extends beyond my lifespan. We want to build a brand that leaves a sizable dent in a positive way. I don't know what that's going to look like in 50 years. I just know that we're going to do things with that vision. And then, the doors will kind of open up as they will, as we go.
I love it. I love it. It's an awesome mission. And good on you for continuing to stay open to opportunities and solving problems as you've gone through your life. I was going through some of your a lot of your Instagram posts the other day in preparation, and one of them that I really liked that I think is applicable to anybody who's listening that I want to dive into just a little bit here towards the end. It was like 5 productivity hacks, and 2 of them I kind of wanted to dive into real quick, and I'll let you riff on them a little bit. The first one is the golden hour of deep work. How you describe, all of us have different periods of time during the day when we're our most energized, when we're our best. And we oftentimes, in preparing out our weeks or preparing out our days, we don't think about our future version of ourselves energy levels and when that person's energy level is going to be highest, and make sure you're doing important work then. So riff on the importance and how you leverage that golden hour of deep work as you're kind of planning out your weeks and days, if you will.
Yeah, I think whether you're a morning person or a night person, I really do believe all of us will produce our best work first thing in the morning when we're just like out of bed, recharged, freshest. And it's about, everyone has their own routine, their own process. That's fine. But I believe it's about reducing the amount of time between I get up and I get into deep work. Mm-hmm. So, some people have an elaborate morning routine. That's cool. But in my experience, if you just get right into the most important work, you can get 2 hours of work done and then your day can almost be done. Like the amount of unproductive nonsense that happens throughout most of the day, like task switching and doing all this and like these little menial tasks don't really move the needle forward. Versus if you get up, you get right into deep work. And one of the things that has helped me is just setting up my environment to win. So that means I use an app on my computer called Self-Control. To the best of my ability, I turn it on the night before, and it turns off all websites that I do not want access to, which is pretty much everything other than Google Docs. So in the morning, I'm like, okay, I'm going to create. So I'm going to be writing, I'm going to be thinking, I'm going to be strategizing. And that's the most important work for me, or most of us founders or leaders to be doing. So the other cool thing about this is for a lot of people that are transitioning to building their business or growing their business, or they're moving online from offline, the first part of that journey is like you're working 2 jobs. Like you have your existing, whatever you're doing, plus the new thing. What I found is that that's actually an amazing time to do this, because if you have 2 hours of focus work in the morning to build your dream, you have a hard stop. Like you got to get to your job, for instance. And that's actually a really amazing thing to have. It's good to have those hard constraints versus if you have all the time in the world, you will waste most of it. So yeah. I think a lot of people use like, I'm busy, I already have a job. I'm like, good. That's the best time to do this, because if you had all the time in the world, you would waste most of it. So let's use these hard constraints, like 9 to 5, get up at 5, do 2 hours of work, or I've got kids. If you want to be more productive, have kids. I get up in the morning before my kids do. I get in 2 hours of work, and then I can like hang out and chill with them versus just getting up and, moping through your day. I feel the worst about myself when I get up, like the other day, for instance, I got up at 3 and I was like, shit, it's 3 o'clock. Okay, I'm gonna close my eyes for a little bit more. And then I woke up at 7:30 and I was like, oh my God. And I got up and I was so groggy. And I'm like, this is the worst. I don't enjoy this start to the day. So I jumped into the pool just to wake up a little bit. And it's 9 o'clock. I haven't even started anything. I'm like, what's going on today? So there's days like that that I don't really enjoy. And I just feel, for me personally, so much better when I get up early. For me, it's 5 o'clock. I get into the work, 2 hours, like whatever that is. And then the rest of the day is just bonus gravy. It's all good. So that's, if you think about it, 2 hours in the morning, that's 60 extra hours a month. That's like a week and a half of full-time working.
Yeah.
That's a lot of time. So
no, that was great. 100%. And I agree that constraints are so valuable in so many ways. I've heard the exact quote. It might be the work expands to the amount of time allotted for it. It's like, if you have 8 hours to get something done, you'll take hours to get it done. If you have 2 hours to get it done, you'll get it done in 2 hours. And I think that's just so true. The second part of this post that I wanted to dive into was the thing that you called the decision diet, avoiding decision fatigue. And this is at its highest right now, and it's only going to continue to get higher because all of us have, in a fortunate way, have so many different options, and so have so many different decisions that we have to make on a daily basis. And so that leads to both like physical and mental fatigue, aka decision fatigue. And so what are some of the things that you personally like pre-decide so that you don't have to decide moving forward? For those of you guys listening, an example would be like if you wanted to lay out your clothes the night before so you're not figuring out what outfit you're going to put on the next day. So like, what are some of the things that you pre-decide to make it easier and save yourself some energy for the next day and weeks or whatnot?
yes, the first one is the clothing. So I wear a very, like, most of my clothing is Old Navy. I love their technical stuff. It's so good. It's like $9 t-shirts like this. I love them. So I have all of them multiple times in different colors. So it's like, I'm just going to pull in a black one or whatever color this is. And I have this in my shorts right by my bed. So I get up and I'm done. The other thing too, I think from a work perspective is if you just take out like an index card or like a little notepad and write out the most important 3 things you're going to do tomorrow ahead of time. So I know, like, I don't even know why I don't even do this sometimes, because I'm like, well, dude, it's so simple to do. But if it's simple to do, it's simple not to do. So when you're winding down your day, whether it's, later in the day or at night before you go to bed, whatever, just write down in order of priority, what are the top 3 things I'm going to do tomorrow that are actually going to move the needle? And you've already made the decision. So now when you wake up in the morning, there's no thinking about what am I going to do? It's like, boom, number 1 is this, we go. So I think making decisions, I call it thinking once. So can you think once, but you don't have to think again? And so if you can decide the day before for tomorrow, then you've already done the thinking and now you just execute the next day. So think of, like, any aspects of life, like even if it's even with workouts. I mean, I have had so many workouts that have been so wasted because I've walked into the gym with no plan. Yeah. Right. Versus, okay, I'm going to do squats, 3 sets of 8. Here's roughly the rep, the weight range. I'm going to do, like, just writing it out ahead of time. It's like the difference in quality of workout. Oh my God. It's like day and night. So it's like plan ahead, decide ahead, and then just execute, as opposed to like figuring it out as you go. I think it's just so much more effective.
Yeah, no, I think that's so good. I love the thinking once idea because, yeah, then it just frees you up so much throughout the day. So you just go, this thing, boom. I love that. I love it. I love what we've covered here today. Is there anything else in particular here at the end that you care to share from a productivity standpoint, from a goal standpoint, or anything like that?
Yeah, I guess just piggybacking on what we just talked about, everything that we do has a decision behind it, right? We're literally human algorithms, right? When this, then this, if then, like if then. Yeah. So if you can start to document your decision-making process or decision-making thinking, you can outsource your thinking to a certain extent. As an example, my executive assistant she's been with me now for almost 3 years. She's amazing. And one of the things that she does is she does at any given time what I don't want to spend my time on. And so like her skill set has evolved tremendously over 3 years based on what was the flavor of the day or the month or the thing that she had to learn. So one of the first things that she had to take on for me personally was all of my travel, right? So she's booking flights and everything for me. So how does she know what seats to choose or what type of aircraft I like to fly on? Because I'm a bit of an aviation nerd. I document all of it because I'm thinking, okay, if I go to a website like Air Canada and I'm booking a flight from here to here, I'm just thinking about my thinking. I'm like, what makes me decide that seat and not that one? And then I just document it. And so we have this whole travel playbook. So we know exactly what type of aircraft, the general routes, the type of seats, window versus aisle for this type of aircraft, so that she knows how to make the right decision that I would make on my own. And what that means is I never have to book my own travel anymore, which is amazing. We also have a whole car and playbook. So for our like home and car stuff, like everything. So as an example, one of my cars right now, I have 2 McLarens, but they're back home. And one of them has been in the shop for like a couple months and they finally fixed it, finally finished it. But they had to transport it from the shop to a storage facility and it's the dead of winter. And apparently when it got to the storage facility, there's a huge crack on the windshield. I'm like, that wasn't there when I dropped the car off. And so now there's this huge nonsense that's going on between the tow company and the body shop and like who's responsible for it. And I'm in a different country and I have nothing to do with it. Yet my assistant, Becca, she's been dealing with the whole thing, going through all the nonsense. And I told her the other day, I'm like, I'm really, really thankful that you're doing this. I know it's a real pain in the ass, but she's like, no, I love this. I'm like, great, because I would go crazy if I had to spend all my energy doing this stuff. But again, it's like in that process is documenting how are we making decisions around this type of stuff so that she or anyone else can do those things, because that's a massive energy suck. So I think if we kind of just take a step back and look at ourselves as human algorithms, like we all make decisions and we all have a process for doing so, whether it's in the business or personally. Like how do you choose an avocado at the store? What's the criteria that someone else could take to then do the shopping for you? And so just stepping back and documenting some of that will buy you back so much time and freedom, whether it's even for yourself to just execute on more easily, or maybe eventually having someone else support you with. So
that's great. That was so good. I'm already thinking about like what all the different things that I want to document and hand off. And that's so applicable to so many people who are listening, whether you have an assistant, whether you have somebody else working around your house, or just like there's a coworker or somebody who's working for you. There's so many different ways that you can apply that. And also, even if you don't delegate it to somebody else, if you document it, it's going to make it a whole lot easier for you to do it the next time as well, if you need time to delegate it to somebody else. So that was great. So we've covered so many different things today. You guys need to go make sure you follow Yuri on Instagram at Healthpreneur. That's HealthPreneur. We'll have all that stuff in the show notes in the description below. So you go follow him at Healthpreneur. You can go to healthpreneur.com to learn more about the business and their mission, like he was shared a little bit about today. But is there anything else that anywhere else people should go find you and learn more about you and support you?
Instagram is probably the best place. And then if they want to check out our videos on YouTube, we also have a really awesome YouTube channel at Healthpreneur. And I share everything on that. So it's a lot of fun.
Beautiful. Awesome, Yuri. Well, we had covered some great stuff today, from your own personal story to how you go about some leadership and that balance of empathy and accountability. And I loved hearing your outlook and some of your practices with your kids. I thought that was super fascinating. And then some of that productivity stuff at the end, I know will be super impactful and helpful for a lot of people viewing and listening as well. So if you guys are listening on the Apple Podcast app or on Spotify, make sure you hit the follow button. If you're watching on YouTube and you don't subscribe yet, hit like and subscribe down below. But Yuri, that's all we got today, man. That was awesome. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Nick.
What an incredibly valuable conversation with Yuri. He shared a ton of wisdom on how to pivot in life and business, how to balance empathy with accountability as a leader of both a team of clients and of kids, and how to ensure that your kids are not entitled, but actually empowered. And those 3 productivity hacks, like those were absolute game changers. I can't wait to, especially that last one, apply that more effectively myself. If you enjoy the episode, again, make sure you hit that follow button on the Apple Podcasts app or on Spotify. And on watching on YouTube, hit that like and subscribe button down below. But let's dive into my 3 biggest takeaways from the episode. Number 1 is that success is built on adaptability. He talked about how he was, a professional soccer player until 24, and then he became a health and fitness coach, and then he realized he wanted to scale further, and he's had a lot of different pivots or adaptations in his career that have continually led him to long-term success. Takeaway number 2 is that great leadership requires both empathy and accountability. You can care deeply about your team, but still set high expectations that drive growth and results. And when you're doing so with your kids, even though they're not necessarily buying in to your accountability, they were kind of forced into your accountability. But hey, you still got to do that in order to raise resilient kids. So teaching them discipline, teaching them gratitude and the value of hard work is crucial in today's world. And then third and finally, those productivity hacks, the 3 hacks that he shared today. Golden hour, taking advantage of especially the first couple hours in the morning. The second one was thinking once. I loved that. Think once. Plan ahead, prepare ahead so that you eliminate decision fatigue the following day, the following week. And then third and finally is document your decision making. Think about what is going through your head when you're booking a flight? What is going through your head when you're sending an email? If you can document that stuff, then it will make it easier for you to do the next time, or it will allow you to delegate it to somebody else. If you can do some of these things, you're going to be so much more successful in your career. You're going to be more successful as a leader, as a parent, and as a human being if you start to apply this stuff. And ultimately, I hope that all of these things and what Yuri shared today allows you to get closer and closer to your best you.